You owe someone money right now, and you have never once written a check. Not a bank. Not a friend. Not your parents. You owe a debt to a person who does not exist yet, the one you promised, in a quiet room, on a specific night, that you would become. You remember the promise. You remember exactly where you were standing when you made it. And every day since, you have made a small payment of avoidance instead of a single payment of truth. Tonight the invoice comes due. You know the night I mean. Maybe it was after a funeral. Maybe it was 2 a.m. on a bathroom floor. Maybe it was in a car, engine off, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. Something in you sat up and said, "This ends. I become someone else starting now." You felt it in your chest like a verdict. You believed it completely. And then Monday came. This speech is not going to let you forget that promise. It is not going to comfort you out of it. Somewhere in you is a ledger, and it has been open for years, and the person on the other side of that ledger has been waiting patiently, without complaint, for you to pay what you said you would pay. Tonight we open the book. The voice. There is a voice in your head that speaks before you do anything hard. You know the one. It arrives the second you consider changing, a new schedule, a new discipline, a hard conversation, a leap. It says, "Who do you think you are?" It says, "You tried this before." It says, "You are not built like the ones who make it." Here is the first truth, and it will unsettle you: that voice is not wisdom. It sounds like wisdom. It has the tone of an elder, the patience of a judge. But it is not protecting you from failure. It is protecting itself from change. Because the voice does not belong to your future. It belongs to your past. It is stitched together from every room you have ever been in where you were told to be smaller. Think about where you first heard it. A parent's sigh when you brought home a dream instead of a plan. A teacher's red pen circling the one wrong answer instead of the 19 right ones. A friend's laugh, quick and careless, at the exact moment you admitted what you actually wanted. None of them meant to build a prison in you. But they left bricks. And somewhere along the way, you picked up those bricks and you built the wall yourself. You became the mason. You became the guard. The voice is not wrong because it is cruel. It is wrong because it is outdated. It is running software installed when you were 7, 9, 14, a child who did not yet have the resources to survive rejection, so the mind built a shield. Do not want too much. Do not reach too far. Reaching is where the pain lives. The shield worked. It kept a small, scared person alive. But you are not that person anymore, and the shield has become the cage. Listen to how the voice operates. It never says, "You will fail," in plain words. That would be too easy to fight. Instead it says, "Not yet." It says, "When things settle down." It says, "You should be realistic." It dresses caution up as maturity. It dresses fear up as strategy. And because it sounds so reasonable, you have obeyed it for years without ever cross-examining it. Cross-examine it now. Ask the voice one question: what has caution actually earned you? Not safety. Safety was the promise. Look at the receipt instead. Caution has earned you a decade of almost. A drawer of ideas you never opened. A version of yourself you catch in the mirror sometimes, for half a second, before you look away. The voice did not protect you from pain. It just changed which pain you feel. Instead of the sharp pain of trying and missing, you have been given the long, dull pain of never trying at all. That second pain does not go away. It does not fade with time. It compounds. It is what you feel at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and there is nothing left to distract you from the sound of your own unmet promise. Here is what the voice never tells you: it has no evidence. It speaks in absolutes: always, never, everyone, no one, but it has never once run the experiment. It predicted you would fail before you tried. It predicted the room would laugh before you spoke. It predicted rejection before the message was even sent. It is a prophet with a perfect record of never being tested, and you have been treating its untested guesses as settled fact. You were not born with this voice. You were born reaching. Watch any child learning to walk. They fall, and something in them has not yet learned to be ashamed of falling, so they simply stand again. No inner monologue tells them they are not the kind of person who walks. That voice gets added later. Which means it can be examined later. Which means it can be rewritten later. Tonight is later. The voice is loudest right before growth, not before danger. That is the tell. If you were about to step in front of a car, your body would not narrate, it would move. Fear that keeps you alive is fast and wordless. Fear that keeps you small is slow and articulate. It wants to talk. It wants a meeting. It wants to explain, patiently, why this particular dream is the one exception to what is possible. The very fact that it negotiates is proof it is not protecting your body. It is protecting your comfort. And comfort is not the same thing as safety. Comfort is just familiar pain wearing a softer name. So when the voice speaks tonight, and it will, probably before this speech even ends, do not argue with it. Arguing gives it a seat at the table. Instead, name it. Say, quietly, that is the old shield talking. Then keep moving anyway. You do not have to silence the voice to outgrow it. You only have to stop mistaking it for the truth. The lie. Now go deeper. Underneath the voice is the thing the voice is built from, fear. And fear has told you a lie for so long that you have stopped noticing it is a sentence at all. The lie is this: fear means stop. It does not. Fear means engage. That is all it has ever meant, biologically, since before language, since before you had a name for the feeling. Your body does not produce adrenaline to freeze you in place forever. It produces adrenaline to sharpen you. Faster reflexes. Wider pupils. Blood pulled from digestion and pushed into muscle. That is not a system designed for retreat. That is a system designed for a fight, a chase, a leap. Fear is your body loading the weapon. You have spent years reading a loaded weapon as a white flag. Here is what is happening in you at the exact moment you feel that tightness in your chest before a hard thing, a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, the amygdala, is scanning for threat faster than your conscious mind can think a sentence. It does not distinguish well between a tiger and a difficult phone call. It does not distinguish between a real fall and the social fall of being seen trying and failing. To that ancient piece of tissue, humiliation and death register on nearly the same channel, because for most of human history, being cast out of the group was death. There was no surviving alone on the plane. So your brain still fires the alarm for the modern equivalent, the awkward silence, the rejected pitch, the failed attempt in front of people who might remember it. That alarm is not lying about the sensation. It is lying about the meaning. The sensation is real. The interpretation, this means danger, this means stop, is the part fear invented to keep you where it can still find you. Fear is not trying to keep you safe. Fear is trying to keep you predictable. A predictable life is easy for the old wiring to manage. A changing life is not. So fear will manufacture urgency around comfort and manufacture danger around growth, and it will do this so smoothly that you will call the result just being realistic. Doubt runs the same trick from another angle. Doubt tells you that uncertainty is evidence. It says, you don't know if this will work, therefore it probably won't. But notice the sleight of hand. Not knowing is not the same as knowing it will fail. Doubt takes a blank page and reads failure onto it, the way a person afraid of the dark hears a coat rack and swears it moved. The uncertainty was never proof of anything. It was just uncertainty. Doubt filled the silence with the worst possible sentence because that is the sentence it is built to write. Look at what fear actually is, stripped of its costume. It is prediction, not fact. It is your mind running a simulation of the future using the worst available data, and then presenting that simulation to you as memory of something that already happened. That is why fear feels so convincing. It borrows the emotional weight of memory and applies it to something that has not occurred yet. You feel the shame of failing before you have even started. You feel the sting of rejection before the message is sent. Your nervous system cannot always tell simulation from history. But you can. You can ask, out loud if you need to, did this happen, or did I just imagine it happening? Almost every time, the answer is that nothing has happened yet. There is only a story, running on a loop, mistaken for a verdict. This is the lie in full. Fear says a feeling is a forecast. It is not. A racing heart before you speak is not a prediction that you will embarrass yourself. It is oxygen moving to your brain so you can think faster. A knot in your stomach before you send the application is not evidence you are unqualified. It is your body preparing for something that matters to you, and things only produce that response when they matter. The size of the fear is not a measurement of the danger. It is a measurement of the meaning. You have been reading the wrong gauge your entire life. The needle was never pointing at threat. It was pointing at significance. Once you see this, the fear does not vanish. That is not the promise, and anyone who tells you it vanishes is selling something. But the fear changes address. It stops living in the part of you that decides, and it moves to the part of you that simply notices. You will still feel it. You will feel it in the elevator before the interview, in the pause before you hit send, in the second before you knock on the door you have been avoiding. Let it be there. It is not a locked gate. It is a doorbell. It is just telling you that you have arrived somewhere that matters. Walk in anyway. The ones who made it. You think the people who made it were not afraid. You think somewhere there is a class of person who simply does not carry the weight you carry, who wakes up clear and certain and walks into the world without the static in their chest. That person does not exist. What exists is a person who carried the same static and moved anyway, one time, and then learned that moving was survivable, and did it again. Picture a woman standing backstage before the biggest audition of her life, hands shaking so badly she has to press them flat against her thighs to stop the tremor. She has been rejected 11 times this year alone. 11 rooms that looked at her and said, not this one, not you, not now. She has a folder on her laptop labeled, without irony, no's, and it is heavier than the folder labeled, yes. Tonight, before she walks out, she does not feel ready. She feels like a fraud standing in someone else's shoes. But she walks out anyway, because she made a decision months ago that readiness was never going to arrive on its own schedule, and she stopped waiting for permission from a feeling. She got the part. Not because the fear disappeared. Because she stopped requiring its permission. Picture a man in a garage with a business plan that 3 banks have already refused. He is 31. Everyone at the family dinner table has a version of the same look on their face, kind, worried, the look people give you when they think you are wasting your good years. He has enough savings for 4 more months. He does not have a guarantee. He has a Tuesday, and a Wednesday, and a decision to keep showing up to the garage instead of the job listings. Most nights he does not believe it will work. He works anyway, because belief was never the requirement. Motion was the requirement. 2 years later the thing he built in that garage employs 40 people. Not one article about him will mention the 4 months he spent not believing in himself while doing the work regardless. But that is the actual story. That is always the actual story. Picture the runner who finishes last in her first real race, so far behind that the course marshals have already begun taking down the tape. She stands at the finish line alone, humiliated, certain this proves what the voice always told her, that she is not built for this. She could stop there. Almost everyone would understand if she stopped there. Instead she signs up for the next one. And the next one. Not because each race gets easy. Because she learns, slowly, that finishing last and finishing broken are 2 different things, and she was never actually broken. She was only new. Years later she is not the fastest in the room. She has simply outlasted every voice that told her to quit in year one. Notice what is missing from every one of these stories: the absence of fear. It is not there. Search for it and you will not find it, because it was never the deciding variable. What was present, every time, was a specific and unglamorous discipline, the willingness to feel unready and act regardless. That is the entire mechanism. Not confidence first, action second. Action first, and something that resembles confidence arriving later, quietly, as a side effect nobody ordered but everybody eventually receives. There is a myth sold to you constantly, in clean edited clips and highlight reels, that the people who made it crossed some invisible threshold into fearlessness, and that is what let them proceed. It is a lie built for merchandising, not for truth. The actual mechanism is duller and more available to you than the myth. They did the thing while scared. Then they did it again. The doing came first. The feeling of capability was manufactured by the doing, not the other way around. You have been waiting for a feeling that only gets built by the exact action you have been postponing until the feeling arrives. It is a locked loop, and there is only one door out of it: go first. Every person you admire has a version of your 3 a.m. A version of your bathroom floor. A version of the promise made in a quiet room that took years to start honoring, and that they broke 100 times before they kept it once, and kept it again, until keeping it became who they were instead of something they were failing at. They are not a different species. They are not running on different biology. They simply stopped waiting for the static to clear before they walked into the room. The static was still there. They walked in with it playing in the background, the whole time, every time. Your real story. Here is where this speech turns toward you specifically, because everything up to this point has been building toward one reframe, and the reframe is this: the struggle you are ashamed of is not evidence against you. It is your resume. You think the fact that this is hard for you means something is wrong with you. Look again. Notice who else this is hard for. It was hard for every single person in the last chapter. Difficulty is not a diagnosis. It is the entrance fee. Everyone who has ever built something paid it. You are not failing the test by finding it difficult. You are simply taking the same test everyone else took. Consider the version of you that got up today anyway, after the version of yesterday that convinced you it was pointless. That is not weakness. That is a person still showing up to a promise that has not paid off yet, with no proof it will, and doing it again regardless. Name what that actually is. It is not stubbornness for its own sake. It is loyalty to a version of yourself you have not even met yet. Most people do not have that. Most people quit quietly and rewrite the story so the quitting looks like wisdom. You are still standing at the door. Look at the specific thing you think disqualifies you. The late start. The failed first attempt. The years that look, on paper, like evidence you waited too long or tried the wrong thing or aimed too high. Turn it over in your hands like an object, not a verdict. That late start means you know what waiting costs, which means you will not waste the time you have left the way you wasted the time behind you. That failed attempt means you already have the one piece of information that people who have never tried do not have. You know, specifically, what does not work, and you know you can survive finding that out. That is not a disqualification. That is a credential. Nobody hands out a diploma for it, but it functions exactly like one. You have been measuring yourself against a person who never fell, and that person is fictional. The actual bar, the only bar that has ever existed, is, did you get back up? Not how many times you fell. Not how graceful the fall looked. Not whether anyone was watching when you fell or when you rose. Just, did you get back up? You have cleared that bar more times than you are giving yourself credit for. Every version of you that woke up on a hard morning and moved anyway already cleared it. You have been so busy grading yourself on the falls that you forgot to count the rises. There is a particular kind of pain that only visits people who still care. If you had truly given up on the promise you made, you would not still feel the ache of not having kept it. The ache is not proof you failed. The ache is proof the promise is still alive in you. Numbness is what actual surrender feels like. You do not have numbness. You have ache. That is the most hopeful diagnosis available to you, and you have been reading it as the worst. Think about who has actually been in your corner this whole time, even when it did not feel like it. Not other people, you. The part of you that refused to let the dream die quietly, even when you gave it every reason to. The part that kept a folder, kept a note, kept a half-finished draft, kept coming back to the idea at 11 p.m. when you should have been asleep. That part never left. It has been sitting patiently at the table this entire time, waiting for the rest of you to sit down and finally have the conversation. Tonight, sit down. Your story is not a list of the times you fell short. Your story is the number of times you tried again after being told, by a voice or a room or a rejection letter, that you shouldn't. That number is not 0. Stop rounding it down to 0 because it does not yet include the outcome you wanted. The outcome is not the story. The persistence is the story, and it has been writing itself the entire time you thought you were failing to write anything at all. The decision. There is a moment, and you know this moment, when a decision stops being a thought and becomes a fact. Not when you feel ready. Not when the fear leaves. The moment the decision becomes real is the moment you stop negotiating with it. You have been negotiating for a long time. You have turned the promise you made in that quiet room into an ongoing conversation instead of a closed door. Every morning you reopen the case. Every night you re-argue it. That is not indecision, that is a decision in disguise, and the decision it has quietly been making, every single day, is no. Not yet. No. Because, not yet, that repeats for years is just no wearing a patient mask. Tonight the negotiation ends. Not because the fear is gone. Not because the conditions are finally right, they will never be finally right, and every person in every story you just heard moved without that guarantee. The negotiation ends because you decide it ends. That is the whole mechanism. Not a lightning bolt. Not a movie moment. A decision, made in an ordinary room, on an ordinary night, that today is the last day the promise gets postponed. Here is what the decision actually requires of you, and it is smaller than you think. It does not require you to become a different person by morning. It does not require the whole plan mapped out, the whole fear resolved, the whole outcome guaranteed. It requires one specific, concrete action, taken in the next 24 hours, that the old version of you would have postponed. One message sent. One application submitted. One conversation started. 1 hour, protected and used, toward the thing you keep saying you will get to. Not someday. Tomorrow. Name it right now, specifically, before this speech ends, because a decision without a next action is just a feeling, and you have had the feeling for years. The debt does not get paid in one payment. No debt this size ever does. It gets paid the way every real debt gets paid, in installments, on a schedule, whether or not you feel like making the payment that day. That is the part no one tells you in the highlight reel. The people who kept their promise to themselves did not feel triumphant every day. Most days they simply made the payment anyway, small, unglamorous, unwitnessed, and trusted that the sum of those payments would eventually become a life. You do not need a miracle. You need a Tuesday. Then another one. Understand what is actually being decided tonight. Not whether you will succeed, that was never guaranteed for anyone in any story you have ever admired. What is being decided is simpler and entirely within your control, whether you keep being a person who owes, or become a person who is paying. Those are the only two categories. There is no third option where the debt quietly disappears because enough time passed. It does not expire. It compounds. The only way out is through the door you have been standing in front of for years. So stand up. Not later, the exact moment this speech ends. Say the promise out loud, the real one, the specific one, the one from the quiet room. Not a vague wish. The exact sentence you said to yourself that night. Say it like a debt you are finally done avoiding. Then do the one thing tomorrow that the person who made that promise would already have done by now. The voice will still be there. Let it talk. The fear will still show up. Let it ring the doorbell. None of that is the condition anymore. The condition was decided tonight. You are not waiting for the static to clear. You are walking in with it playing, the same way every person who ever made it walked in, scared, unready, and moving anyway. You said you would become someone. That someone has been waiting. Stop making them wait any longer. If this reached you, if some part of this was written for the exact room you are standing in tonight, subscribe. Not for me. For the next person standing where you are standing right now, who needs this exact reminder at their own 3 a.m. Share it with them. That is how this actually works, one person passing the debt notice to the next, until enough of us are finally paying what we owe. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself.